Hi, I'm just back from the cinema on opening day from seeing Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, his own remake of the 1922 F.W. Murnau adaptation of the story of Dracula. Murnau decided not to bother trying to secure the rights to Bram Stoker's original story, so he just made his own version, setting it in Germany rather than England, earlier in the 19th century, and taking a view that vampirism was more of a plague, a pestilence, than anything romantic. Stoker's widow tried to sue, with the destruction of all copies of the movie ordered, but it nevertheless survived, and it was eventually remade in 1979 by Werner Herzog, with the title changed from Nosferatu, a Symphony of Horrors, to Nosferatu the Vampire. Here it's simply Nosferatu, and it goes back to the original story. It's the tale of Dracula, of a mysterious Transylvanian nobleman who summons an estate agent to assist in buying a castle in a town in the country of origin, here, as I said, early 19th century Germany rather than late 19th century England. But the count is in fact a vampire and is enamored with the estate agent's wife, whom he has fallen in with from afar and wants to consume as his own. So he travels by sea, taking with him the plague of rats, and a group of men get together, the surviving estate agent, his brother-in-law, a doctor who's been treating the woman, and a mysterious expert in the occult thrown out of medical school who has knowledge of how to defeat vampires. It's a very dark, brutal take on vampirism. As I say, it's treating it as more of a pestilence, a plague, a monstrous blight on the world than anything in any way romantic. And when we finally see Orlok himself, he's almost like a walking cadaver, a being of corruption and decay, rather than any kind of charming, urbane, debonair figure that you might see in other takes on the story. It's up to Eggers' usual standard of filmmaking. It very much feels of a piece with The Witch, with The Northman, with Lighthouse, my favourite of his films, in having this very stark, austere, almost black and white, classical early cinema style to it, but nevertheless filmed on a lavish budget with expensive makeup effects and beautiful design work. It's an impressively lavish production, and the design work is fantastic, but I feel that it falls a little short. While I was uh, while I was watching the movie, I was reminded of Peter Jackson's King Kong, how that was his magnum opus. That was the film where he wanted to pay tribute to the work that had inspired him to become a filmmaker in the first place, and how that film was over 3 hours long. It was wildly protracted and surprisingly dull. It was very, very self-indulgent. Eggers' Nosferatu risked being that, and as I say, here the film is almost an hour longer than the Murnau original. The admittedly very short Murnau original. Here it's about 2 hours 12 minutes, including credits. And there are pacing issues towards the end of the second act, where I think there are too many dialogue scenes. There are too many character moments that aren't pushing the story along. But I feel that this is generally overcome by the quality of the production. There are superb performances across the board. We have Bill Skarsgård as Orlok. Is totally unrecognizable under the makeup. His voice is totally different. Nicholas Hoult, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Lily Rose Depp, who I don't think I've seen in a feature before, and I thought was very strong. Emma Corrin, who was very good. The Van Helsing figure is here, Dr. von Franz, played by Willem Dafoe. Almost a gag in that the 2000 film Shadow of the Vampire, the darkly comic spoof dramatization of the making of Murnau's original, cast Dafoe as Max Schreck, the actor who played the vampire, with the twist that Schreck was a real vampire and was eating the crew while Murnau's back was turned. And Dafoe actually got an Oscar nomination for that, the first ever to be given for a performance as a vampire. But it's a very strong production here. I just feel that the script isn't quite there. It was maybe just slightly over the line in terms of self-indulgence and expanding the story out. It could have lost 10 or 15 minutes, just bringing it under that 2 hour mark, and it would have been excellent. It has a wonderful little atmosphere of dread and morbidity and impending doom and catastrophe that Eggers does so well. He's a real master of mood and tone in his films. There are great performances, there's great design work. Orlok himself is totally repulsive and monstrous and disgusting, as the vampire should be in this story. It's bizarre that the movie's been as big a success as it has been. Released in America on Christmas Day, it's made almost $50 million in under a week, which is really shocking for a film that's this dark and violent and nasty. But it shows that there is an audience for good quality movies and good quality horror movies, particularly. The screening I went to was almost completely sold out on the afternoon of New Year's Day, which was a bit of a surprise, but and almost very inconvenient if I'd been about 5 minutes later. But again, a very pleasant surprise. Um, it's a film I recommend. It's not necessarily one that will feature in my top 10 of the year, but as I had been a little bit ambivalent about The Norseman, I thought this might have gone a bit further and been too self indulgent, but it's not. Eggers serves the story well. He knows what he wants to do with it. And although there is a little bit too much of pushing the audience the wrong way, I think that the strengths overcome the weaknesses. And as a result, this is, I think, the best version of Dracula in quite some time and a great way to start the new year.